Okay, everyone. Hello. It is 7 o'clock exactly on the button. Welcome to Couch to Kitchen. I am Chef Daniela Abel. Very glad to be with you here tonight. And I'm glad you chose to spend your Wednesday night with me. Lose track of the time sometimes here during COVID times. That's okay. Hopefully you can sit back tonight, enjoy, relax, watch this video, and then recreate some of the recipes whenever you feel like it, whenever you have time. So for those of you who are coming back to Couch to Kitchen, welcome. For those of you who have not been to Couch to Kitchen before, welcome. This is a little bit of housekeeping and how class works. First and foremost, actually, my eyes are not shifty, everyone, but I have 3 different devices going. I have my phone in front of me that is really handy to go throughout the kitchen. And I have my computer over here where I'm watching people entering the room with the help of our moderator, Alina, and also some cue cards, not really cue cards, but like some notes in front of me, basically. So my eyes are kind of back and forth. So as you enter the room, you are going to be on mute. Please keep yourself on mute. Just as a courtesy of others, we call this a little tech courtesy to make sure that no background noises get through on the video and everyone can concentrate on me. Also, speaking of concentrating on me, please turn your cameras off for now. There'll be plenty of time to turn them on at the end, but for now, we do want all eyes on me and what I am doing tonight. Also, if you would like to ask a question, you are very welcome to do that live during the class. Simply raise your hand. You can do that in 2 different ways. If you're watching from your phone, simply tap on your phone, and in the right-hand corner, you'll see 3 little dots that say more. Press it. Right up at the front, you'll see raise hand. It will virtually raise a hand. Alina, our moderator, will take you off mute, and then you can ask your question live. If you are watching on a computer, simply go to the bottom of the Zoom call. You'll see reactions. Press that. At the very top, you'll see raise hand again. Again, simply raise your hand. Alina will take you off mute and you can ask your question live. If it's a question that requires a longer explanation, we'll just save it to the end, no problem at all. Of course, if you're more comfortable, you can always still submit your questions through the chat box. We'll keep an eye on that throughout the entire class. Don't forget to register if you haven't already for our fruits and vegetables class that's coming up next week. I'm really excited for this one because this is great for people with kids, especially young kids who are like, I don't want to eat my fruits and vegetables. We're going to teach you how to make them delicious. There is no sneaking vegetables in. We're going to really make them so they want to have their vegetables. If you recreate any of these recipes, we want to see them. Hashtag ZamanC2K on your favorite social media platform. Post your picture, tag us. We want to see what you're doing. Also, don't forget, these classes are recorded automatically. You'll get a YouTube link in the next 24 hours. There's a private link to this class if you have purchased it, so you can watch it again and again and again and again. It's a lot of my face. It's a lot of my face for me too, because I'm looking at me as I'm doing all this, but that's okay. All for all of you at home. So everyone, let's get started. It's a big water day, don't mind me. Okay, so we're going to go over right now what stock is. Now, if you weren't here for class last time, I would highly encourage you if you registered for it, but I think I saw on the roster actually 100% of you registered for both classes. So if you haven't watched that YouTube video yet, I really encourage you to. Yes, Monday was all about meat stocks, and we learned how to take bones, roast them, slowly simmer down the stock, strain it. So really encourage you to watch that video. However, we're going to take today a really different turn into a different type of stock. We're going to be going over vegetable stock today. So as a recap for some of you, but some of you might be hearing it for the first time, what is stock versus broth versus soup? So everyone remember that soup is a really delicious liquid that has all types of different things in it, everything from meat to beans to vegetables that can be eaten as a meal. Really delicious. Something that can be hearty, it can be thin, it can be light. It's a lot of different things. That is soup. If you were to take all the solids out of that liquid, so any beans, meat, and vegetables, again, take it out, and all you're left with is that flavorful liquid. That is considered broth. However, that is not stock. Soup is not stock, and broth is not stock. Separate things. Stock is the simmering of mirepoix, which is a French term for carrots, onions, and celery, and animal bones. However, today we're going to make a vegetable stock. A vegetable stock is the slow simmering of mirepoix again, and different non-starchy vegetables. It is usually made without almost any salt whatsoever. So stock is a base for building other things, for building other soups. Or we did a couple different recipes last week. We did curry and what else did we do? I don't remember. I hope you do. But we did a couple different recipes with it. And again, it is the base for everything. It's not meant to be a liquid that you can eat on its own and it tastes good like soup. It really has a very bland base flavor to it. Think of stock like the blank white canvas before you paint all over it. So now that you understand a little bit again about what stock is, let's get into it and talk about our vegetable stock. I'm going to actually, for the sake of the recipes being properly timed, I'm actually going to show you how I drain the stock, but I'm going to come back at the end and teach you how to make the vegetable stock. Okay, so let's bring you over to the big cutting board over here. Boom. Let's see what we've got going here. Okay. So what I want to show you is after the stock has been slow simmered, and again, I'll show you how to do the vegetable at the end of class. You have a bunch of solids in here. They're your carrots, again, your onions, your celery, and various vegetables. You're going to take those out of the stock. You're going to drain it out completely, all the solids. Now, this is great because the solids, you can discard them if you'd like. However, they make wonderful, wonderful baby food. I love to take them all, just blend it, puree it together, and give it to my friends who have kids. So it's a great thing to keep in your back pocket. Then I'm left with this liquid. So it looks pretty clear, but it actually has some impurities in it, some little pieces of things that kind of boiled off and settled to the bottom, kind of like pretty much like sediment. So I want to make sure to strain it to really get rid of all of those small particles. I'm going to need a mesh sieve or cheesecloth, just like this. You can always put the cheesecloth over this mesh sieve as well if you really want to make sure that you have nothing in there besides liquid. And then I'm simply going to take the stock and pour over. So you can see what was sitting at the bottom, some peppercorns, and again, just some sediment that rested. And we don't want that in our stock. So what we're left with is a clear liquid. So again, this is a vegetable stock that I did earlier today. It's been simmering for a couple hours and cooled a little bit. And I'm going to be using in the recipes I'm going to show you. I will go back at the end of class and explain to you everything that I put in the vegetable stock to make it this very beautiful, dark brownish golden. It's awesome. I tasted it before. It's fantastic. Anyway, I'm going to set this off to the side and let's get into some of our recipes. Now, remember what I said. Stock is the base for so many different things. Basically, wherever you can put water, you can put stock. So 2 recipes that I'm going to be doing today are rice with vegetables and leek and bean soup. I was very excited to show you these 2 things because something that I really tell people all the time, the first thing I say, what can I use stock in? The first thing I say is rice. Oh my gosh, rice. It makes rice so incredible. Now, normally rice is a 2-to-1 water ratio, right? We have 1 cup of rice to 2 cups of liquid like water, but that doesn't have to be water. It can be stock. This is how you make those rices that we know and love, like traditional Mexican rice or a rice pilaf. All of those have a burst of flavor if you add stock instead of water. So again, we're going to really start with that great base fundamental. Let's turn you back down here and let's prepare everything for our rice with vegetables. All right. I'm going to gather up, I have a variety of vegetables here. I have zucchini, a bit of onion, some broccoli, and a little bit of a portobello mushroom head. I'm keeping all the vegetables in here because I'm going to need them for later for the stock. So this worked out quite nicely. gonna cut this in half here because I'll use half of this for the stock as well. Now, for those of you who do not, I'm gonna give this a little rinse. For those of you who've never done this before, you think, okay, I've made rice before, but I've never included anything else into it. It really brings the rice up a notch. It makes it into a full, hearty, and healthy meal instead of just plain old starch. So first, what we're going to do, let me get a bowl here, is I'm going to want to make sure to chop up all these ingredients very fine. Where did my bowl go? Right here. I really want to kind of mince everything. And the reason I want to mince everything is because think about how really small my rice grains are. I don't want to overwhelm this with big old vegetable bites. That is a general rule we talked about during knife skills to make sure that everything is nice and uniform. So what I'm going to do to kind of match how small my rice is I'm going to mince. And what's great is that broccoli kind of falls apart up at the top, but I love the stems. People sometimes cut off 100% of the stems, but I think the stem has really wonderful and meaty flavor to it. So I'm halved the stem here, and I'm going to make sure I cut it up into small bits. Look at that, very nice. Cut that in half, cut it in half again. Remember, when you're talking about knife skills, it's all about manipulating something down until it's easy to work with. And look at that, how small, just like our grains of rice. We can go over it a couple times to make sure everything is really minced up. Beautiful. Yeah. I have a little bit of a portobello mushroom cap here. I just cut those in strips, then I'm going the other way to again mince. I'm going to make all the vegetables match in size. Just running my knife along here a couple times to really get it even. And then I have a zucchini. I'm probably only going to use half of this. The other half I will save for my stock. I'm going to keep manipulating this down. So cutting in half again, cutting it in strips, and then turning it with my left hand always as a guide. And cutting through. There we go. Very, very nice. And one more. Right, running my knife through this a couple times just to make sure it's nice and fine minced. All right, in the bowl with my other vegetables. And then finally, we're going to make sure always to add either garlic or onion. In this case, I'm going to do the size right here, about only a half of a small onion. And sorry, everyone, if there's a bit of background noise. My husband is conducting interviews while I teach class. So the joys and the pains of the COVID years, huh? Okay, we really want to make sure to mince up this onion really fine. The last thing we want is a big old bite of onion. We want everything to be nice and even and melt together. Really, that's what it's constantly most food is about. You don't want to bite into an overwhelming bite of anything. You want your food to have even texture and even flavor throughout. So that's why it's so important, again, to have uniform cuts, to make sure everything is balanced. Cooking is all about balance and evenness. That's why when we get to our pasta section, this is going off topic, but that's okay because I'm chopping. When we go to our pasta section, we never, ever, ever just sit the sauce on top of the pasta. Why? Evenness of texture and flavor. You want with each bite a perfect combo of pasta and sauce. Same thing here with this rice. I want a perfect bite of all the vegetables and the rice coming together each time. Lovely. All right. There is my onion. All right, I'm going to start sauteing these vegetables. Give me one moment. Just let me rinse off my hand here. Okay, we have my vegetables, and also ahead of time, I prepared some rice. This rice has been rinsed beforehand. It's actually parboiled, which means it's been partially cooked. Speeds up the cooking time a little bit, but this is a white rice. Has to 100% be rinsed. You don't want your rice lumping and clumping together like your pasta, actually. So when you rinse, you're rinsing out off all those starches that make it kind of lumpy and clumpy. So you definitely don't want that on your rice. Rinse it thoroughly till the water runs clear. I'm just doing a half a cup of rice tonight. You can do as much or as little as you'd like. Remember, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. Two cups of liquid to 1 cup of rice. So I'm cutting it in half this time, half a cup of rice to 1 cup of liquid. This is some vegetable stock from earlier that I'm going to be using. And then also some spices, just a teeny bit I'm going to use today to really kick it up a notch again, to make it really a hearty meal on its own. It's a little bit of paprika and a little bit of coriander. So let's take you over to my pot here. Again, only a small pot because I'm not making that much rice. However, it's important that the pot has a secure and tight fitting lid. There you go, you guys can see. There we are. There we go. My vegetables all in there. Remember, always salt and pepper in layers. So a little pinch of salt and pepper. Also, salt is going to release water, and we definitely want to release the water of these vegetables and cook them down quite a bit before I add in my rice. Mix that all up. I did add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil beforehand, not too much, because I really don't want, the last thing I want is my rice to be greasy. So you do need a fair amount of fat to make sure that the grains don't stick together, but not so much that it's just dripping in fat or it's greasy. There's nothing worse than greasy rice. It's just ugh, not good. All right. Let's just let that cook down for a second. In the meantime, I'll get everything on standby, put it right next to me. Mise en place, everyone. Make sure that you have everything ready ahead of time so you can cook with ease. While my vegetables are sauteing down, does anyone have any questions?
I don't see any in the chat.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. I can start to smell it already, smelling those onions become fragrant, and also smelling some of the meatiness of those mushrooms, excuse me. This is the other great thing, everyone, about mise en place, about having everything prepared and ready to go, is that I am not so busy running around like a chicken with my head cut off, that I can cook with all of my senses. And you should always be cooking with all of your senses. You should be looking to see how the everything is bubbling or how hard it's boiling, what the colors look like. You should be smelling, of course, always smelling to check, oh, is it a pleasant smell? Is it a burnt smell? Does it smell fragrant, etc. You can, of course, we've been feeling, because I've chopped all of the vegetables, and constantly, we should be tasting. Remember, that's good. Perfect amount of salt. Remember, unless it's raw meat, you can taste every step of the process, and you should a lot. How else am I supposed to know if I put enough salt in that until it's too late? Taste, 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 taste. And of course, listening. I forgot that sense too. Always listen. All of these senses together are going to make it so you remember the dish for next time. Next time you make it, you think, that sizzle sounds a little harder than it was sizzling last time. Turn down the heat. So again, cook with your senses, be connected to your food. It'll make you a better cook. All right, these look cooked down beautifully. Now I'm going to add a little bit of my spices. Remember, this is the smoked paprika. Just a dash. I don't want to overwhelm this, so just a couple dashes. Always try to get the smoked paprika. A chef once told me that every other paprika was just expensive food coloring, and I kind of agree. Smoked paprika is where it's at. And coriander, remember from our spice class, coriander is actually cilantro after it's gone to seed, and those seeds are harvested and ground down into coriander. So just a little dash of each right in the vegetables. I'm going to stir it all up, because remember, heat activates spices, heat and fat. And let's taste this to see if I want to add a little bit more. It's a light dish, so I don't want to overwhelm. No, it's perfect. Now I'm going to take the rice, add the rice right in there. Rubber scraper, the girl's best friend. And now I'm going to toast the rice. So actually combine it with the vegetables and toast for just a couple minutes. That's where the rice actually gets hot, and it brings forth a really sweet nuttiness that is natural in each rice kernel. All right. Perfect. Looks like no moisture left. Now we are going to add our stock. Really important. Stir once, and that is it. Leave it alone. Do not nervous stir. Everyone, did you know it's one of the #1 nervous habit amongst my students? And every single time you stir, you're allowing air to come in to whatever you're cooking and slowing down the cooking process. Know when to stir and know when to leave it alone. Now I need to make sure to add some fat here, otherwise it will stick together. So about a tablespoon to a half a tablespoon of butter. I'm going to taste one more time for salt. It's going to need just a pinch. Okay, lovely. Lid goes on. We are going to let this first come to a hard simmer. And then we're going to turn it down to a very, very soft simmer with the lid on. You have to make sure to watch the rice, otherwise it can easily boil and burn over. So let's keep an eye on it until it comes up to temp. Resist the urge, everyone. I am watching it, but I see this time and time again. Resist the urge to stir. You are going to really just kind of mess up rice and make it clumpy if you do. Don't touch it. Control it with the heat. Okay, once we got it up there, we are going to turn it down into a very soft simmer. There we go, just around the edges, perfect. All right, let's take you guys around back to the big old cutting board, and we're going to move on to our next recipe. So notice what I did with there. Again, I used stock instead of water. I'm going to add a pop of flavor and really going to make all the difference in the world. So the next thing that I'm going to show you to do is one of the other most classic things to make out of stock. It's soup. So oftentimes when we're making soup, we're adding water. Of course we are. Anything from chicken soup to bean soup, you're always used to adding water. But instead, next time, add stock instead of the water, and it will take your soup to a whole new level, which is what we're going to do today. So I wanted to work with some vegetables that I got some requests on that people usually don't work with. And one of them is leeks. This is a leek right here. A leek is in the onion family. This part right here, the bulb part, grows underneath the ground while the green part sticks out. And the green part is what absorbs sun, has a photosynthesis process, and feeds the bulb down beneath. But you can use pretty much the leek really high up, and I'll show you how to do that today. Leeks are grown in sandy and rocky soil. So the thing is they have these layers just like all onions do, or any onion in the onion family, and the sand gets in between each layer. So you have to slice it and then rinse it and wash it really well, which I'll also show you how to do today. I had 2 leeks today. I chopped one up ahead of time. Let's do the other one. I chop the root system down below, so just cut that off and discard. And then we're going to cut in rounds. So everyone, once you get up to kind of that green part, this is where you can start shedding the outer leek leaves. You see all that sand in there? So take off some of these outer leaves and expose more of that light green white part, and keep chopping. Let me get there again. Go. Almost there. There we go. Use almost all the way up to the top. So we're going to take all these rounds, put them in a colander. Let's go over to the sink. I'll show you how to rinse them. Cold water. What you need to do is take every single one of these and really kind of pop them out, their rings out, just like so, and you'll see the dirt and sand that you're going to get in between each and every single one. You can also soak these in a bowl of water and keep changing the water, but I find running water is a little more effective. I adore working with leeks. I think that they are incredibly underutilized by a lot of households. And the flavor is very difficult to describe. However, it is way more milder than a regular onion. It is sweeter. It is meatier. It's juicier. It really has the best of all the vegetable worlds kind of combined into one. I love to saute these down for everything from soup like I'm doing today, to mixing them up into my eggs, to putting them on top of bread. I'm really nuts about them, guys. You can also do this and wash them and prep them in advance and keep them in an airtight container for a couple days. So I use some of these for stuffing around the holidays, and I actually wash and prep them in advance, and they keep for a couple days, so you don't have to go through all this on the day. All right, they look pretty darn clean to me. Get underneath here. Let's bring you back over to the cutting board. And we'll put these off. There we go, to the side. Aren't they pretty? Actually, no, I take that back. We're going to get these going right away. Bring you over to the pot. Extra virgin olive oil. And a little bit of butter, because butter and leeks go together like peanut butter and jelly. There's my base of fat. Also, everyone, check this out. I'm going to take you over to the rice. You see how it's simmering oh so gently. Hopefully you guys can see in there. There we go. Try not to lift off the lid because I would definitely want to capture the steam, but it's a perfect amount of simmer. So we're going to still leave it alone. Remember, don't touch it, don't stir. And I'll show you what it'll look like right before we turn off the heat. There we go. So melt that butter with that olive oil. Great, and let's add the leeks. Of course, salt and pepper in layers. So these get some initial salt and pepper. Wait till that comes up to temp. Our whole goal with this is to get the leeks soft. So leeks are one of those things like spinach or like kale. It starts off, you're like, that's a lot of leeks, but holy moly, do they cook down. Excellent. All right, you will see a massive amount of water that will be released from those leeks, which is a good thing. They'll kind of gently stew themselves in it and really get soft. Beautiful. Someone have a question?
Yes, I do. Daniela?
I recognize the voice. Hi.
Hi. So when you're putting salt in initially with any vegetable, but in particular right now, you're trying to open up the cells so that you have more water. What happens if you have a dish where you don't want to release the water right away? Do you just not use the salt?
Hold off on the salt. Yeah, really good question. That does happen sometimes, but yeah, just hold off on the salt for sure. And you're going to have those circumstances with meats as well, and just hold off on it. But that's why when we talk, when we did we do our meat section already? I can't remember. I don't think we did. But that's how we talk about salting meat in advance. And when I say in advance, I mean like a day in advance, to give the water a chance to escape. So it's not going to escape in the pot.
Right.
But yes, if you ever have that circumstance, just hold off on the salt.
Okay. Thank you.
Like, for example, a good time to hold off into it is like if you're grilling, right? So
Right.
sometimes you want to do something like sweat something. So for those of you who do not know, eggplant can be kind of bitter. So if you add salt to it, it's releasing the bitterness that comes through the water. And then when you're dabbing it off, you just dab it off dry, and a lot of bitterness is being released that way. But other vegetables, you don't want to salt in advance if you're grilling them, because then they'll just kind of wilt on the grill. You just want to salt them afterwards.
Ah, okay.
All right, so while those are cooking, everyone, let me spin you around here. I want to show you what this rice looks like. So the rice right now, kind of hard to see in here, but there are tiny little holes, they almost look like pinprick holes throughout this, where the water is being released, the steam was captured, and you really can't see any liquid poking out through those holes and bubbling. It's pretty perfect. So what I want to do is turn off the heat and keep the lid on for 10 to 15 minutes to steam, to really get the rice thoroughly cooked. I am going to give this a little bit of a taste beforehand. Don't disturb it too much, just the top. Make sure I have enough salt, which I do. That's perfect. All right, well, these leeks continue to cook down. Let's bring you over to the cutting board and continue prepping the rest of my things for my soup. Oh gosh, those smell so good. Oh, you've never cooked leeks before. They just smell heavenly. So a couple things I'm going to prep. I'm going to have some Calabrian chili paste on standby. Remember, if you don't like spicy, you can omit. However, this is really going to benefit from some umami flavors, which we'll talk about in the form of cheese. So we're also have an advance, and this is kind of a non-negotiable, a Parmigiano Reggiano rind. So as a reminder, we've talked about this a couple times. Parmigiano Reggiano is not Parmesan cheese. Two completely different cheeses. Parmigiano Reggiano is a cheese that is aged for a minimum of 24 months. It is imported from Italy, made with milk from Italian cows that is only let to sit outside of the cow for a maximum of 2 hours before it goes into the cheese making room. Very strict procedure, completely different outcome. Parmigiano Reggiano is very hard cheese. It's crystallized. It's full of umami flavor. That's that savory flavor that makes your mouth water. Parmesan cheese is completely different cheese. It's only aged for a minimum of 9 months. It is a softer cheese and a young cheese that comes right here out of the United States. Is Parmesan terrible? No, it's fine. However, it does not begin to compete with Parmigiano Reggiano. Look for Parmigiano Reggiano on the label. It will say right on the outside what cheese it is. The best part of Parmigiano Reggiano is the rind. So the rind outside here is full of, again, that umami flavor. It's really concentrated in the rind. And what I do is I cut off these rinds as I use each block, and I keep them in the freezer. I can take them out of the freezer as I'm ready to use them and pop them into things like soups and stews. And it really imparts a very unique flavor. So I'm going to put that off to the side. I also have some chopped up kale that I will be putting in at the last minute of this soup. And some beans. These are some, I couldn't find cannellini beans for the life of me for some reason. So these are some great white northern beans from the can that have been rinsed. I'm going to prepare some garlic now. Remember, cut off that woody end. Give a little smash. Should come right off there. And going with the theme of my leeks, I am going to slice this garlic. Perfect. Let's get these in with my leeks. Take you back over to the pot. Now's the time we're going to add some of that Calabrian chili paste. This is just going to be bursting with umami flavor. Let's mix this all up together. Also, even though they beg for it, do not give your dog any leeks. Probably not good for them. He likes to still beg for it. He thinks he wants them. All right, that got all happy together. Now we're gonna add, you guessed it, our stock. This is our vegetable stock that we strained earlier. And I'm actually gonna add a little bit because I have some left over, and why the heck not? I'm going to add some of my beef stock from the other day. If you want to make it completely vegetarian, of course, you would stick with just the vegetable stock, but I had both, and I think they'll be great combined together, so why not? What you saw on the top there is some fat that solidified in the refrigerator, and lots of flavor in that. That's going to go right in the pot. We'll turn up the heat and wait for that to simmer. And we are also going to add the Parmigiano Reggiano rind, just like so, and let that get happy together for about 15 minutes on low. So moral of the story, can you combine stocks? You can. Will they sometimes be conflicting flavors? Sometimes, but not in this particular case, since we're going for a really rich umami flavor. The beef stock will do beautifully. A chicken stock would do well too. Pretty much any stock in the soup, I would say. Interchangeable for sure. And I'm going to have two things on the side here, my kale and my beans. I'm not going to put these two things in advance. These are canned beans that are already cooked. They will fall apart if they are boiled for too long, and the kale will kind of shrivel up into nothing. We don't want that. We want both these ingredients to remain whole. So I'm just going to put these off to the side until we are ready. Timing is perfect. We have about 15 minutes for this to boil. All right, let's take you back to the cutting board. So let's talk about our vegetable stock. So our vegetable stock is absolutely fantastic for cleaning out your fridge. I love making this stock because this is at the end of the week where, oh my gosh, I have 20 million stupid little small vegetable scraps. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make stock. The formula is, the base formula is always going to be the same. Your mirepoix, so your combination of carrots, onions, and celery. But then the difference is, of course, no animal bones because it is a vegetable-based stock. You can pretty much, the sky's the limit. That's what's so cool about this. You can use anything except for those vegetables that are starchy. So that basically means no potatoes. And you don't want to use anything that's like romaine lettuce or iceberg lettuce that is going to be too waterlogged. But other than that, you're free to use things like cabbage, spinach, tomatoes, mushrooms, peppers, zucchini, broccoli. I mean, really, the sky is the limit as far as the vegetables here. So if you think of one just that you're not sure of, just shout it out. But I'm going to show you what I had in my fridge and how we're going to make it. So again, I'm going to start off with this pot, but like I said the other day, you make as much or as little as you'd like. A lot of people get intimidated by stock because they see the huge stock pots. I have one of those too. However, they think, what am I going to do with all of that? Well, don't worry, you don't have to make all that, especially if it's just you or one other person. You can make a small little pot of it and call it a day. So what do I have in here? I have left over some snow peas. Take a handful of those in the pot. I have that little quarter of an onion. Remember, you can keep the skin on the onion. That creates a beautiful color in the stock, and it'll do you no harm because it's being boiled for so long. I have broccoli, a little bit of this going bad on top. I'll just chop off the bad part. I love that when vegetables are about to go bad, chop off the bad part and throw them in stock. You know what's also great about the broccoli? You know that bottom of the broccoli that no one wants to use, that long stem, that can go in here as well. I have that zucchini from earlier. Now, same rules apply, everyone. I'm chopping up big pieces because this is going to boil for so long. I don't want them to be obliterated into nothing. I have a half of a pepper. And I have a bunch of cherry tomatoes that are about to go bad. And do I have to do anything to them? Guess what? Just plop them right in the bowl. I already had my onion in there, and now I'm going to chop up my base, my carrots and celery. Okay, remember, carrot doesn't even need to be peeled. And my celery, along with some celery leaves, big old pieces. you go. Oop, I forgot one little piece of pepper in here. All right, now if you remember from the other day, the other things that are non-negotiables in stock, they are fresh parsley, flat leaf parsley, peppercorns, and a bay leaf. So bay leaf. So a note about a bay leaf, I think we talked about a little bit about this last time, but bay leaves that are dried and have been sitting for a long period of time in the cans they sell at the store generally don't have a lot of flavor to them. It's really unfortunate. Fresh bay leaves like these need to be kept in the fridge, and they last for about a couple months, but they have a completely different flavor than the dried ones. They are incredible. However, they're also incredibly hard to find. I fear to tell you where I found these the other day, but I will anyway. I found them of all places at Meijer's in their little herb section that had no herbs in it except packages of these fresh bay leaves. God bless Meijer. Don't you love Meijer as a Michigander? So got some fresh bay leaves on hand. Some peppercorns. These are whole black peppercorns. Do not put ground pepper in here. Just remember how we talked about straining the impurities. Well, you're never going to be able to strain that fine ground pepper. It's never going to happen. And it's going to change the flavor profile of the stock. Peppercorns are an absolute must. This is how all ground pepper starts off as, is whole black peppercorns. And whole black peppercorns need to be either introduced to hot water or some sort of heat in order to activate their flavor. So they go in there. Now I am teaching you how to make an American stock. The French would be aghast because they would want you to make something called a sachet. A sachet is a cheesecloth that you wrap up the parsley stems, the garlic clove, the peppercorns, and you kind of dip it in there. However, I don't think the flavor is robust enough. So I prefer to do a loose American stock. And I also put in a pinch, and I mean a tiny little oomph of salt in there, just to bring forth some natural vegetable flavors, but not enough to, by any stretch of the imagination, flavor the stock itself.
There's a couple questions in the chat.
Yeah, please go right ahead.
The first one is, can you freeze soup?
That's honestly too general of a question for me to answer. It 100% depends on the soup. Last time I checked, there's something called the Soup Bible that has currently counted, like, I think over 500,000 different soups in America alone. So I can't speak to all soups. I can tell you some general rules, like cream-based soups don't freeze very well. More stock-based or liquid-based soups do. Things within a lot of dairy in it don't freeze well. Things with a lot of starch in it don't freeze well. So it really depends on the soup, but there is no general rule for that. What is the next question?
How long will recorded classes remain available?
As far as I know, indefinitely. As far as I know.
Yes, indefinitely.
Thanks, Monica. Hi.
Hi.
Was there
The
another
next
question,
one
Alina?
is-
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Do they have to be black peppercorns?
Yes, they do have to be black peppercorns. So there's a number of different types of peppercorns that are delicious. There's red peppercorns and pink peppercorns and green peppercorns and white and Szechuan, and they are all fantastic and I love them, but they don't belong in stock because their flavor is whoa, except for white peppercorns, which have a very mild flavor. That's the only thing that I could potentially see myself subbing. But yes, in general, you want to stick with black.
I think back to the soup one, it was, can you freeze the soup you made today?
Oh, the leek and bean soup? Yeah. Yeah, I think I could, yeah, you could freeze it. The one thing I will say is that beans don't freeze incredibly well. They have a tendency to break apart. So it won't hurt you or anything or curdle or turn a weird texture like the dairy does. But just keep in mind the beans might break apart. But yeah, it would be, this soup would be fine being frozen because it is a pure stock base. Was there another question or anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. All right, so finishing up this stock here, I took a garlic clove and crushed it. And again, you don't have to peel it, just put it right in the pot. And then here is whole parsley. Do not chop that up, keep it whole. And I'm gonna go fill up this pot with water. Here we are, going straight on the stove, and it's going to slow simmer. Stock that is this small of a pot, it's going to be ready in about an hour on a very, very low simmer. Talked about this last time, but I'm going to reiterate, it has to be on the lowest possible. It's not even a simmer, it's a gurgle. So there's a hard boil, you know, the bubbles are all over the place. You definitely don't want to do that because you don't want everything to break apart. There's a simmer, which is gentler, but that's actually too much for stock. Again, it's simmering for such a long, it's cooking for such a long time. You don't want it to break apart. So you want like a blurp, 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 blurp. That's how low you need the heat. So again, about an hour. I like my stock super concentrated, so I'll actually keep this on the stove for probably a couple hours. And when the water gets a little low, I'll just add a little bit more, a little at a time, and it gets super concentrated. Lid off. Always, always lid off with stock because we have to practice reduction cooking, reducing it into something smaller and concentrating flavors. Going right on there. All right, so let's look at some dishes that we have done. First of all, the rice. Plate this here on a clear one. Oh, this is wonderful. Again, a fantastic side dish, or there is nothing wrong with eating this just as is. Also, I love this sort of rice for leftovers because, you know, what I do in the morning, I scramble a bit of eggs and I put the eggs, mix it up right with the rice and heat that up a little bit, and it is glorious. So there is my vegetables and rice made with stock. Fantastic flavor to that. Let's check, let's come on over here and check on the soup. This is wonderful. And the Parmigiano rind is starting to break down. Taste this for salt. That is perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our beans. Give those a little stir and just need a couple minutes for those beans to heat up. And then we're also going to add our kale. Just a couple minutes for that. Kale's going to get that beautiful bright green color. And then we are going to serve it. The Parmigiano rind can be discarded. You're not going to eat that whole. It's just to impart flavor. Just give that a second. You can really tell, you'll be able, if you cook with a Parmigiano rinds for the first time, you'll be able to really sense this very, very delicate but distinct flavor that it imparts on the soup. That was good. Sorry, I had to I just sneak a little bit. All right. Well, this is finished heating up. I'm going to ladle out some. Any final questions before class is over?
There's none in the chat.
Okay. And one final taste. This definitely is going to need a little bit more salt, guys. Beautiful. So when you make a soup like this, everyone, I'm going to bring you over here. When you make a soup like this, especially if it's for your friends or family, they really, and you make it with stock, they really will notice a difference. And of course, if you layer it, also keep in mind, we talked about this before, I'll keep reiterating it. You want to cook in layers. It is not simply enough to throw all those ingredients that I just mentioned into a slow cooker or even a crock pot and let them all simmer together. You really want to cook layer by layer to release flavors. And it's going to make all the difference in the world. So that is our leek and white bean soup with kale. So warm and cozy, and it smells so very good. I'm going to enjoy it. If no one has any further questions, then that is it for class. And hopefully I will see a lot of you next week for our fruits and vegetables section. Just want to wait. Oh, I should go over to the comments. Sorry, no, wait. I think we got all of them. Okay. Oh, awesome. Yay, yay. Oh, I see you, Chris. Can't wait to try the soup. Yay, yay. Wonderful. All right, guys. Thanks. Have a great night and stay safe, stay healthy. See you later.